Next up on the show, very excited to bring in a man I had the pleasure of meeting several years ago, talking about this new concept called social betting. Now, it's not just a concept, it's a reality. And I think a lot of you out there in the audience, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening along with the podcast, are going to be interested in this new idea from Kutt, Kutt.com. This is Sim Harmon. Sim, what's going on, man?
Pete, what's happening, brother? Thank you very much for having me.
Let's start with just the very basic. What is social betting?
Yeah, what's funny is I used to have this long spiel about social betting, right? This kind of like investor pitch. And then I realized, hey, let's make it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. Social betting is friend-to-friend betting. That's what it is in a nutshell. All these bets that you make with your friends on a day-to-day basis, social betting, handshake bets, group chats, et cetera, et cetera.
So this is a way to manage that much more efficiently at the first order. And then at the second order that we'll get into next, it's a way to make new friends you might be able to engage in a wager with.
100%. So what we're doing with social betting and what we're doing with Kutt specifically is we're taking all these social bets that you make on a day-to-day basis, right? And then we're putting them into a fun, interactive, engaging app. So that's twofold. Number one, we take care of the payment side of things so that you don't have to chase down your buddy for money, right? And then number two, we have a ton of social features. That could be things like leaderboards, chats, groups, user profiles, things like that. And so our whole thought is that what we're doing is a bit more fun than your traditional betting, right? Because it's with your friends, number one, and then number two, it's a lot more interactive than your traditional sports betting.
And somebody might say, well, why not just use Venmo? And I think, I think I know the answer. I think you know the answer, but I'll let you spell it out.
No, that's one of our favorite counter arguments. It's like, oh, well, why would I use your app when I could just use Venmo? The answer is you could, but what we're doing is, again, we're taking care of that payment immediately so that you're not having to actually chase the person down. I think this. Everyone has had that one friend, right? Who are just like, hey man, you just owe me $25. Can you just Venmo me that $25, right? And that could be something as simple as going out to eat, going to dinner with somebody. And so what we said is, that's a pretty inefficient way of doing it. And so we are actually taking care of the payment side of things. So all bets that we offer are pre-funded bets. You have to put your money up. We hold the money in escrow. And then as soon as the game is over or event is over, we actually pay out automatically within, call it 10 seconds.
Yeah. And that's the key, the pre-funded. You don't have to chase, because what happens at the racetrack, and I'm sure it's the same with sports bettors, is, and sometimes this is just honest, you forget because you got 16 different things going on. And then there's also, that friend who just, might be taking a little bit of an advantage as well.
Exactly. And the thing is, the reasons are numerous, right? I'm not just talking about the guy who doesn't want to pay. I'm talking about two friends sitting at a bar who 10 drinks later have forgotten the details of their bet. This is
was it 6.5 points? Was it 7? Yeah,
exactly. And the other thing I want to point out too about Kutt is that we're not just sports bets, right? This really could be bets on anything that has a verifiable outcome. I think some easy markets to explain to people would be politics and pop culture. Think about a reality TV show that has a winner. Think about elections, things like that. But ultimately, what we want to get to is to a point where we're offering bets on, your kind of friend group bets, right? Hey, we've got a gender reveal today. Who wants boy, who wants girl, right? Or
who gets married next? Are we talking
exactly
about
which one of our friends is dumb enough to get engaged next, right? Something like that. So sports is kind of the easy segue into this, but our goal is to ultimately offer bets on basically anything with a verifiable outcome.
Very, very interesting, and potential applications for horse racing as well. I want to talk about the expanded social features, because we're talking about this like something that would only be friend group to friend group. But having spent some time on the app via message boards and getting to know the other people on the app, there's a way. Let's say you want to go bet on the Islanders game on the next time it comes up, that you might be able to find a partner to do that. Explain how that piece of the business works.
Yeah, for sure. And this gets back to the social side, right? And the thought process here is that you're a fan of, like, let's take sports, obviously, for instance, but you're fans of teams, right? And that team really becomes an extended family. Fans of that team become an extended family. I think everyone can agree on that, right? When you go to a game, there's a lot of bonding that goes on. It's sad. They talk about coworkers and fellow fans. Those sometimes are a bit more close than a real family. And so we're trying to capture that. So in essence, we will create things like fan groups, right? And so within your fan group, you can interact with other fans, whether that's in a message board setting, whether that's in a betting setting. In addition to that, we also want to create a little bit of a rivalry component, right? Where, let's say, hey, you're an Islanders fan, and let's say someone else is, a Devils fan, or, another, one of the many other hockey teams or baseball teams or basketball teams, whatever. And we want to encourage that engagement between fan groups, right? So there's the friend-to-friend component, as well as the more public component, which I think is what we're talking about here, that allows you to say, hey, you know what? I don't really want to bet my friends anymore. I want to see who else is out there, right? And it's the ultimate put your money where your mouth is. And that's our tagline, put your money where your mouth is app, in the sense that if you find a fan talking shit to you, okay, cool. Let's make a bet on it.
Instead of just arguing on Twitter,
Exactly. You would, obviously, I think everyone's seen this, right? Everyone's got an opinion, especially in the social realm. And what we're saying is, okay, hey, you have an opinion, put some money up behind it.
And one thing for the general sports bettor out there that you're going to be very intrigued by is the way that the pricing works. Because not only is it competitive with the wider industry, it's a real feature, I think, of what Kutt, KUTT.com offers. Explain how that piece works, and then we'll get into the more the technical side of things where folks can access it.
Yeah, for sure. So anyone knows if you want to bet on sports, you have your traditional sports books, right? Your FanDuels, your DraftKings, even your offshore books. And 99.9% of those books charge 9 to 10% vig, right? So you see the minus 110. What that means is, obviously, you have to put up 110, to win 100. Obviously, horse racing has a bit of a different setup, but same concept, right? There's the vig, or the juice, that you pay. Entirely too high. I think everyone can agree it's absolutely bonkers, to pay 9 to 10% just for the opportunity, the privilege to place a bet. And so what we do on Kutt is we actually offer a much lower alternative. It's what we do is we take a 3% transaction fee of the entire transaction. Our odds do not actually show vig in them, so what you'll see is, even in opposite money lines, you will see no minus 110s. You'll just see the odds as they are. And then we actually just take the transaction fee from the winner. Right?
A commission, so it's exactly the model that folks watching from overseas will recognize from, like, a betting exchange.
Exactly. That's precisely what we are. At its core, it is a betting exchange, where you just take that small fee and, hey, you know what, you pay it. Again, it's cheaper than the alternatives.
I'll ask this as a tough question, knowing full well you have an answer. How is this legal?
Right, the $1 million question. So, due to some of the features that I have mentioned thus far, and due to several other things that we can get into if you would like in great detail, we are actually considered to be a game of skill. So, skill-based gaming, very similar to a fantasy football operator, due to the fact that, you could argue that, hey, we are competing against someone else in that, peer-to-peer based model. We are allowed to operate as a game of skill. That allows us to operate in certain states where traditional sports betting is not legal. And then also, there's some give and take. They can operate in several states where we cannot. But ultimately, 37 states plus DC is where we can operate.
That's terrific.
And again, it's, we have legal counsel. Obviously, this is not some fly by night operation. I want to be very clear about that. This is, I think a lot of people, as a startup, right, we're still having to build credibility. And I think a lot of people, when we approach them, they're like, oh, so you're legal because you're offshore. And it's like, no, we're located here in the US, we're venture backed and, have investors. We just operate this model that is a bit different than the traditional model.
And the 37 states, the ones that you tell me, I don't know this off the top of my head, but most of our listeners are New York, Kentucky, California. Those are the big three for us. And then we have
Well,
people in 50 states. So where
we
are
are.
with those three?
Yeah, you're going to do some work here. I had to pull this up. So we are good to go in those three. So New York, I think everyone can agree. New York, maybe outside of Nevada, New York, New Jersey, those are the biggest markets. So we're able to operate in New York, able to operate in Kentucky, able to operate in California, some other big states, Texas, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina. All of those do not have traditional options. We're allowed to operate there. Pennsylvania as well. We can operate there. New Jersey is a bit iffy. New Jersey actually has some very weird rules around skill-based gaming and social betting. And I think if you talk to anyone in the industry, they would echo this. You're not allowed to bet on certain events in New Jersey. You're not allowed to bet on New Jersey-based teams. For now, we're staying out of New Jersey, but we want to incorporate them coming up pretty soon. But the full list can be found on our website if someone would like to access that.
KUTT.com for that. And that's actually the perfect segue to the user interface and experience. You do have a website and a way to bet on a website, but really this is an app-driven product. And it sounds like the first move for most people is going to be to maybe check out the website, but know that the app is an entirely different experience, I would say.
100%. And this is our thought kind of when we were building this is that most people spend I think we would all agree, an inordinate amount of time on their phone, right? And I think that is kind of the way of the future, especially when you start talking about some of these younger bettors is, hey, how do we place a bet from our phone? So yes, we are predominantly and probably preferably mobile based. You can find our app on the App Store. Or the Apple App Store. If you are an Android user, you can actually go to play.kutt.com. So play.kutt.com for Android users, or again, Apple App Store, KUTT for Apple users. Or you can just go to our website, kutt.com. We have links to both there. Great. But yes, this is primarily what we would say. It's going to be a much better experience if you were to access one of the app versions.
We're going to, we skew young for horse racing, but we probably skew older for social betting. So there will be those that do want to mess around and take a look at the interface that you can access through KUTT.com and bet directly. And that is an option as well. Just wanted to underline that but we also have a ton of, most of our stuff goes through Apple. So all those people, okay. That's easy option there. And we have a promo code and a little bit of free money for folks in terms of a deposit bonus. I wanted you to explain about that.
Yeah. So obviously you've been gracious enough to partner with us and help promote. So we're going to use the code in the money. So in the money, I think Pete has an actual referral link if you do put that on your socials. Otherwise, when you go through the onboarding process, there's just going to be a little box that says referral code. You can type it in manually there. Don't worry about spacing or capitalization or stuff. We have that all taken care of. We will see that on the back end. We will know who to associate you with. And then once you do that, we're happy to give some deposit bonuses. We can do anything from, call it just $10 for a sign up to either 10% of a deposit, right? I'd say what we also do in addition to that is once you do actually get on the app, we actually run weekly giveaways. Hey, if you bet $100 today, we'll give you $10 back. So if you use the code in the money, we'll get you set up. We'll get you going, and then obviously take care of you as we continue to use the site and to grow.
10% bonus up to 100. So I would say that the wise guy move would be you pop in the 1,000, you get your free 100, and you start working with that money. And you have an opportunity right now with the NBA playoffs and the NHL going on, and perhaps some other fun offerings around major events, pop culture, politics, sports, etc. going on as well. Tell me a little bit about the community that's been developed so far. If one were to go on there, this is a funny way of asking it, but if one were to go on there tonight and let's say there's, I don't know, let's just pretend there's 15 baseball games tonight. Is it conceivable to get action on any of them, or is it a little bit more limited to like whose fan bases are sort of more popular in the chat functions there?
Yeah, for sure. And that's a good question. Listen, I'll be very candid with you. So we actually launched the app in November of 2022. So, we're still growing. We have a couple thousand users right now. Obviously, not all those people are active. Could you get down $10,000 on a Tuesday afternoon baseball game? Probably not. Probably not. But I would say for the major sports, primetime games, whether that be NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs, even most baseball games, quite easy to get down several $100s, all the way up to $1,000.
That's great.
Liquidity is good for I think our stage right now. Obviously, again, we do have some drawbacks, right? But that will only get better and better as the community continues to grow. What I will say is we also have a couple of, what I consider to be bigger bettors. And these guys, if they see action out there, most of them take it, because like a lot of bettors, a lot of people do it just for the fun, for the action, just to say that they, have some kind of vested interest in a game, right? But ultimately, liquidity is good. Obviously not where we want it to be, but I would say if you're betting anything under $1,000, you can feel pretty damn good that it's going to be filled.
Get in on the action and put your money where your mouth is. I mean, I love it. I like the fact that you know who you're betting against, right? For sure.
And I think that's one of the calling cards of Kutt, right? Is that everyone has a user profile. You can see things like, who their team, who they like in teams, what their records are, what your head-to-head record against them is. And what that does is it kind of creates a bit of a competition, right? And you could say, hey, I'm betting against this guy. I've actually had several friends reach out to me recently and they say, hey, who's user 12345? Like who is this, right? They take a lot of my bets and they've been winning a lot. I really want to talk to the guy, right? And I'm like, listen, press his username, that takes you to his profile, and then chat him up, and I think that's really what we're trying to do is, create this community of bettors, like-minded bettors, and, have that competition aspect, because it does make things a bit more fun, right? When you know who you're betting against, obviously it's a user profile picture, right? But the goal ultimately is to start having events, in real life meetups, and you could actually see some of these guys and girls who you're betting against. So
it's very cool, and we'll talk about that more off air. Your next appearance, I want to do the whole origin story. But for now, I just want to drop the idea that I'm going to be getting involved, knowing that we're good to go here in New York. So, you can look for me on there. I'm going to be looking to do a lot of baseball stuff. That's sort of my main gambling interest outside of horse racing this time of year. But hey, if you could basically, can you send out a challenge? Is that part of it as well?
For sure. So yes, you can send out a challenge. So obviously you have two main ways to bet right now. So number one is actually you create a bet, you send it to one of your friends, that shows up in their inbox, so there shows up in their app, or number two, you just post a bet to the community so that someone else could take the other side of it. But I think more what you're talking about is we do have what we call a request a bet feature. And that's actually a button you can press. It's on the home page. A form will pop up and you could say, hey, this is the bet that I want to see, that I want to bet on. We see that internally. We create that bet for you. We press a button. It's posted to the app. And then you could basically immediately bet on that if you want to.
At lower levels, I'll tell you right now, at lower levels, I will be accepting challenge bets from listeners if they involve the teams that I support. We're talking Islanders, Nets, and also of course the Islanders. So yeah, I'm throwing that out there to folks if they're interested and they see me. I can't remember if I used Looms Boldly as the leader name or PTF. It's going to be one of those. You could probably find me pretty easily, and we'll report back on this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And Sim, we got to have you for a longer visit and talk more about it. But I just wanted to get the idea introduced today. Go to the App Store. Or the Play Store. Kutt, Kutt is the app, or just go to kutt.com, kutt.com, and get more information there. Did we hit all the notes we wanted to hit? Any closing thoughts?
I think so. I mean, ultimately, guys, what I would say is I would love if you checked us out. We're not trying to take over your FanDuels and your DraftKings immediately. Maybe in the future we'll try to put them out of business. But I think that this is a fun complementary product to whatever you're using right now, right? I think we're very aware that we're not where we want to be. And so for now, all we can ask is that you give us a shot, give us some feedback. I'm reachable anytime. My email address is sim, that's SIM, @kutt.com. You can send me feedback, send me thoughts. You know, we're a small team, so we can pretty quickly implement, you know, any type of ideas that you have. But yeah, would love for everyone just to give us a shot, and look forward to having everyone on the app.
Great stuff. If you're listening on the podcast, I'll be back right after this.